Yeah, so let's start understanding PyTest from today. Okay, so the PyTest is one of the testing framework so we use when we are using Python for our automation testing. And yeah, this PyTest will help us to define the test cases and run the test cases. And if you want to run individual test cases or as a batch or define the configurations or to insert the assertions or to generate the reports, to create the dependencies between the test cases. So the PyTest will help you in lot of ways during your automation. And this PyTest will make our testing more flexible and more uh, scalable. Okay, so let's understand how do we use PyTest. Okay, so before we start understanding PyTest, let's understand how our execution will be when we don't have PyTest. Okay, so right now we don't have a PyTest in our in my system, and I'm using PyCharm for you know uh, writing automation scripts. Okay, so now first let me create a directory for us. Then I'll just create a directory as test cases. Okay, and then I'm just creating so a module called my tests. Okay, so ideally when we are doing automation, right? So for every manual test case, then we will be creating a function, right? So each manual test case is represented by a function in our scripts, right? So then whenever we want to run the automation scripts, ideally we will be executing these functions or the methods, right? So now, yeah, let me just create a function here. Assume that, okay, so I have, maybe 3 or 4 test cases which need to be automated. I just create a multiple functions. Consider each function is a test case, right? Okay. Now, let's say here, I'm creating multiple test cases. I just created a function called test TC1. And you might be wondering why I have started the name as a test. Okay, so yeah, there is a reason for that, and we will understand. Okay, so why I have given the name as a test underscore TC1, something like that, right? So you will get uh, the reason behind that later in the same session. Now I'm just using some print statements here. Okay, so I'm in TC1, right? And then let me create one more test case, and I'll say test TC2, right? And then I'll say print of I'm in TC2. Then let me create, yeah, one more test case. Okay, test TC3, right? And then I'll say print of I'm in TC3. Then, okay, so let me create one more test case, test TC4. And I have created now 4 test cases, and each function here, consider that it's a test case. Okay, so there is a warning because of the format. So ideally it expects 2 blank lines between each function or each method. Okay, so now I just created 4 functions. Consider each function or a method here is a test case. Now we are not using any PyTest, right? So if you are not using any PyTest, okay, so we have just written the Python code and we created a function. So without PyTest, and these are the regular functions in Python, okay? So each function is representing a test case, but Python considered them as a normal function. Now, in order to execute these functions, right? So what you have to do now, you see like, okay, so I'll be running the file now, so the current file. And if I run this file and you see the output here, so nothing has been executed, right? You see, nothing has been executed. There is no output. Why nothing has been executed? Because, ideally, when they are regular functions, whenever we run the Python file, then those functions will not be automatically executed, right? So those functions must and should be called. Now, consider I want to run all 4 test cases. So if you want to run all 4 test cases and, if they have to be executed, you must have to call them like this, test underscore tc2, right? So in whatever the order that you want, then, okay, so you can call them. And you say test tc4. Now, right, so I just called those functions. Now, if I run this now, and you can see that output here. So all 4 functions have been executed. Right. Okay. So if you want to execute only 2 test cases, then again, okay, so you have to, right, remove, remaining 2 function calls. So you just have to call only 2 now. That means, okay, so what should we do here? So whenever you want to run any test case, right? So whenever you want to run any of the function, then you must have to call it explicitly, right? So without calling it, it will not be executed. But this will make our job, so hard, because, if there are just only 2 or 3 test cases, or like very minimum number of test cases, then it will be easy for us to call or remove the function calls. But if there are large number of test cases, right? So if we have a huge amount of test cases, and if you want to run them as a batch, right? So sometimes you need to run all the test cases, sometimes you want to run only a particular selected test case, or sometimes you want to run only a certain group of test cases. And also sometimes, you say like, here I have created 3 test cases, right? Consider that they are representing end-to-end flow. Now, sometimes you need to create a dependencies like that. Okay, so if a TC1 is passed, then only TC2 has to be executed. If TC2 is passed, then only TC3 has to be executed. And at the same time, like, okay, so sometimes, see, they are executing in the order whatever we are calling, right? But sometimes, we have to execute the scripts in customized order, right? So yeah, so if you want to organize your test cases like that, and if you want to execute your test cases like that, okay, so in a specific order, or as a batch, or as an individual, right? Or if you want to make the test case dependencies like, okay, so one test to be executed only when other one is passed, right? So if other one is failed, then, okay, so the selected test case has to be skipped. So if you want to, organize, okay, so your test like that, and then we must have to use PyTest. Okay. So then, yeah, so now let's understand how we can, use a PyTest. Okay, so first we will start understanding how to install PyTest, and then, okay, so how to configure PyTest in your project, and then, okay, so how can we run it? Okay, right. Then, so yeah, first, okay, so let us learn how to install PyTest. Okay, so to install PyTest, I'm assuming that, okay, so you already have Python installed in your system, because, okay, so if you have Python already there in your system, then only, you will be able to write the, functions, Python code and all, right? Okay, so assume you already have the Python, so you must have the pip, okay, so PIP in your system as well, right? Okay, so yeah, now in order to install PyTest, do one thing, you just have to open terminal, right? So probably that could be in a Windows system, or that could be in Mac. So I'm using Mac right now, and consider the same process in Windows as well. Okay, so yeah. Now, in order to install it, before we install, just, okay, so let us check if the PyTest already there in my system. So to check if PyTest is already there, then there are different ways. But one of the way is, okay, so in your terminal, after opening the terminal, just run the command, say that PyTest, right? So double version. Just run the command, okay, PyTest version. Okay. So yeah. When you run that command, you see command not found, PyTest. which means that, okay, so it is not recognizing PyTest. So if it is not recognizing PyTest, then PyTest is not there in the system. So that means in my system, okay, so we don't have a PyTest. Then, okay, so let's install PyTest now. Okay, so how do we install PyTest? The simple command, you run pip install PyTest. So you do like pip install PyTest, that's it. Yeah, when you run that command, and then, okay, so you can see PyTest has been installed. Okay. So again, okay, so let me run the same command, PyTest -version, and see if it comes now. Yeah, now we can see that it says PyTest 8.3.2. So which is the latest version. So by default, it will install latest version. But in case, if you want to upgrade the PyTest version, right? So assume that you might have the older version of the PyTest. You might have already PyTest in your system. And if you want to upgrade the PyTest, then what you do is you can say pip install -upgrade, then PyTest. Pip install -upgrade PyTest. Okay. So when you run that command, then it says that the PyTest is already there and updated version is already there. Okay, so it says that requirement already satisfied. So that means there is nothing to update. But in case if you had the older version, then it will automatically update to the latest version. Yeah, this is how you install PyTest. Okay, so or this is how you update the PyTest version. But in case if you want to uninstall PyTest, right? So if you want to uninstall PyTest, then you can use command like, okay, so it's a different way. Then you can say Python -m. That means you are uninstalling a Python module. So PyTest is one of the package or module of the Python. So you are -m refers to the module. So you are uninstalling one of the Python module here. So that's why you say Python -m. Then you can use, okay, so Python -m uninstall PyTest. One minute. No module named, uninstall. Okay, so you have to say, yeah, I'm sorry, I have written the command wrong. So Python -pip, yeah. So because pip need to be used for uninstall and install, then okay, so Python -m pip uninstall PyTest. Okay, so okay, so probably I have written spelling mistake. Okay, I'm sorry. Python -m pip uninstall PyTest. Yeah, so it is asking for the confirmation. Yeah, it is trying to uninstall PyTest now, and you can see it's asking for confirmation. So do you want to proceed? And it's asking yes or no, Y or N. I'm giving Y, and then I'm just entering, and it's uninstalled. Now, if you verify the command PyTest -version, and you can see command not found. I hope, okay, so you are clear on how to install and how to upgrade or how to uninstall or how to verify, okay, so whether Python is installed or not. Sorry, yeah, PyTest is installed or not, right? Okay, again, let me do one thing. So since we need to use PyTest further, and let me install it back. Okay, so then, yeah, so I'll say, yeah, pip install PyTest. Okay, done. Yeah, you can see that Python has been installed now. Sorry, PyTest. Yeah, PyTest has been installed now, right? Okay. Yeah, so once a PyTest is installed, then let's understand how do we use PyTest in our project, right? So just because you have installed PyTest in your system doesn't mean that your project will start using PyTest directly. And once you have installed PyTest in your system, then you have to configure PyTest module to your project. Then only your project will start using PyTest. Your project will use PyTest. Now, how do we configure that? How do we configure PyTest to my project? Go to file settings. Probably in Windows you will get file settings, and in Mac then we get under PyCharm settings. But in Windows you will get file settings. Go to file settings. Under file settings, then you can see the project. So right now it's Orange HRM, but probably will change the project name further. And you see project Orange HRM, and the project Orange HRM. This is a project name, right? So under settings window or preferences window, then go to Python interpreter. And in Python interpreter, you already see there are a lot of packages already there, like Selenium package and other packages already there, for this particular project, which are already configured, right? So modules or packages, whatever. Then you click on plus button, nothing but it is install button. So it is asking to install certain package, right? So, I mean, install in a sense, it's not like it is installing in your system, but it's adding that package to the project. So click on that add button. Then in available packages, then just search PyTest. Yeah, when you search PyTest here, you can see in the result, the PyTest has been displayed. And can you see a button called install package, right? So then after selecting PyTest, you click on install package. And once you install package, once you install it successfully, you get the message like package PyTest installed successfully. And you can see that the PyTest in the list, right? So if it is displayed here, that means PyTest has been configured to your project. Then click on OK. Yeah. Now, once okay, so you configure the PyTest, you see some change happened in your Python package here, right? You can see there is a run button coming for each and every test case, nothing but every function. Why that run button has come? Because now your project started using PyTest. Your project started using PyTest, and each and every function here is recognized as a test case. So since it's recognized as a test case, it is giving a run button. That means, okay, it is allowing you to execute each and every test case. So when you click on that run button, every individual test case will be executed. Now, let me run again. Okay, so earlier we have executed a current file, right? Okay, so nothing was executed earlier when we didn't call. Now I'm not calling any of the functions. So I just created the functions, but I've not called any of the function. Now let me run it. Now when I run it, and you can see there is a small change in the output as well. Now if you look at this, okay, so it is executed the test cases now, right? It executed the test case. Right? You can see that output as well. I'm TC1, I'm TC2, I'm TC3, I'm TC4, but there is a output has been displayed in different format here, like the logs and all. But we will discuss about this log format and all going forward. But if you observe in the log again, it's you see that it started using PyTest. It's launching PyTest with so arguments, but those arguments and all going forward, like, we will learn everything. So what is meant by these arguments? Okay. So now you see, like, when I run the current file, whatever the methods have been created, whatever the functions have been created, all have been executed. So I'm not called any of the function. So, but I just created and kept it in a py file, and then all of them have been executed, right? Okay. So, I mean, by default, it will execute each and every function that's been created, but not every function. Whatever the functions are treated as the test cases, they only will be executed. So when I say all functions have been executed, never mean that all functions will be executed. Whatever the functions which are considered as the test cases, then they will be executed. Okay. So now, even you can execute individual test cases. By default, it is executing all. And then, okay, so by clicking on the run button, which is left side of every test case, then it will be executed. Right. So, I mean, okay, so if you click on run, then it will be executed if you see. 1 minute. Yeah, I can see. Right. So it's been executed. Only, okay, so we can see that TC3 has been executed. Right. Okay, so now I have created 4 functions. All 4 functions I have taken as the test cases. That means that, okay, so when I configure PyTest in my system, for my project, will PyTest consider all functions as the test cases? And will PyTest run all of the functions directly when I run the file? No. So there is a, I mean, okay, so in order to consider a function as a test case, right? So there is a rule, or okay, so there is a certain terms apply here. So what is that? Is, okay, PyTest will consider a function as a test case only when the function name has started with test. You see that all these functions or function names have been started with test, right? So have been started with test. And now let me remove that test at the beginning of the test case. For TC4, I have removed test, but I can give any of the, like, okay, so I'll say my test case. But if you look at that, there is no run button here for this function. Why there is no run button? Because, okay, so this function is not taken as a test case. Why that function is not taken as a test case? Because it doesn't meet PyTest naming convention rule. So as per the PyTest, okay, so naming convention rule, so it will expect test at the beginning of the function name. Whatever the function started with test, I mean, the name of the function, for which function the name has been started with the test, only their test cases will be considered as a test case. Now for this, okay, so I will write test. You see that it has, now it's displayed, the run button. Run button has been displayed now, right? Okay, so this is the reason, initially why I have given, the name of the test case starting with the test, right? So by default, okay, so PyTest will consider the test cases or consider the functions as test cases only when its name started with the test. And even like you say, my TC underscore test. Now, even when it is ending a test or when the test is in between the name, then it is not. So only when it is, at the beginning, right? So that means, okay, so the test case name should start with the test. Then only it will, take it as a test case. Hope it is clear, right? Okay. So now, how do you run your test cases then? Once you create the test case, then how do you run your test cases? There are different ways to. One is like, okay, so you can, click on the run button on the top. So when you click on the run button, by default, it will run the current file, or you can specify a particular configuration, and then we can come to these configurations slowly, right? So how to define the configurations, like, okay, so what test cases need to be executed and all, then we can define a certain configuration. So you can select a certain configuration to run. So by default, I'm selecting current file. When I select current file, then all the test cases under the file will be executed. Otherwise, whatever you want to execute, specify configurations there. Okay, so we will look, we will understand the configurations part slowly. But at the same time, you can also run every individual test case by clicking on run button here, or else there is another option. Other option is, okay, so maybe you can open the terminal, probably manually also you can open the terminal, right? So you can just open the terminal. I will open new terminal here. And then you have to navigate to the project folder. So probably you can use CD, and then you can specify the project path where your project has been, created, in which folder. So you have to navigate to the project folder. And then, okay, so I will run the command directly in PyCharm terminal, but same command is applicable, in a regular terminal command as well, like, or maybe CMD, the command prompt. Okay, so I'm just opening PyCharm terminal. So it opens the terminal here. And why I opened the terminal here in PyCharm, because when I open in PyCharm, it directly navigates to the project folder. Okay, so now you have to navigate to the project folder in terminal and run the command like PyTest, and you have to use PyTest. If you just use PyTest, then okay, so it's nothing has been executed. It's a collected 0 items, means there are no test cases to be executed, but there are test cases, right? So then, okay, so what you have to do is you have to specify the file to be executed. Now, since you are in project folder, right, you give like this PyTest. Then if your py file is directly in project folder, you can give as like this mytests.py. But for us, it is not directly inside the project folder. It is in test cases / mytests.py when I, right? Okay, so now you can see that collected 4 items and 4 have been passed. But if 4 have been passed, but you see that there is no print messages, because every test case has some print message, right? And you can see that they have not, there is no print messages displayed. But 4 have been executed, 4 have been passed. But okay, so the output what we have written inside the test cases are not printed. But there is a reason behind that, but we can see that in the upcoming sessions. And if you want to get the print messages and all, then you can see that in the next class as well. Okay. And you can see that now you have got. And you see like, okay, so in the command, I just added a -s. But okay, so I don't want to explain that -s right now. Okay, so but those arguments for the PyTest command, I mean, if you want to execute your PyTest, your test cases and all from the command prompt, you can use PyTest command. All you do is in your terminal, first navigate to the project folder and write the command like this, PyTest. and then give the py file. If py file is there in particular package or a folder, then you have to give that relative path, project folder. Like, okay, so it's already there in project folder, you say test cases slash mytest.py. And if you want to run particular test case, then okay, so again, because it is running all 4 test cases, right? So because we have directly given the file, and after file name, right? So after py, right? So extension, give a double colon and give particular test case. Like I'll say test underscore tc3, and I will give -s. And now we can see only particular test case has been executed. TC3 has been executed. So all you do is just, okay, so give like this PyTest and your py file, double colon, test case name. Then after that, you give -s. That's it. Yeah, this is how you will be executing the test cases in our PyTest. But I have not, discussed about specifying the configuration, right? So, for your execution and all. But yeah, so going forward, we just started understanding PyTest. Going forward, we will, explore every feature of PyTest. Right? So how can we run specific test cases only? How do we run the test cases with defined configurations and pre-configuration, post-configuration, parameterizing our test cases? So all those things, we will see in upcoming sessions. Okay. So with this, then I'll be stopping this here. And any questions, then you can, uh, ask me on my WhatsApp number, or you can also, okay, so ask me on my email. Right. So my email is nanda.dreddy@outlook.com, or number is 701-3833-519. Okay, so you can ask me on that. Thank you.